Nice to have everyone back. Thanks everyone for coming back. It's our third class today. So I'll quickly just share my screen. Just give me a second. Great. And I'll just go into presentation mode. Super. I guess everyone can see my screen now. And I'll just...
Yes.
Perfect. So yeah, I mean, just, so I think everyone's been through all the three classes. We just have Zalmai today, who's joining us in the third class. I think just to very briefly talk about the first two classes, so everyone's on speed, we just really spoke about, how to study, why monitoring is important, what to consider while monitoring. And we were specifically looking at ungulates in, sort of snow leopard landscape, specifically the Caprine group. And we talked a little bit about how different methods can be used, such as distance sampling, total count, and particularly focused on the double observer method, more in terms of its field-related assumptions and things you need to uphold. So that's a very quick summary of the two classes, really. But we're in class 3, and just before I start again, I would really like to say that while I'm speaking to you today, as always, this class and this entire module has been put together by many people. For instance, there's Hussein, who works in Pakistan with snow leopard and ungulate conservation. There's Puji from Mongolia, Chaksa, who's with us today, also from Mongolia. Yingyun from China, she works again with snow leopards, and Bharal specifically with Shanshui, which is a NGO in China, and myself. So let's dive in today. So for class 3, the aim really is to sort of take a step forward. Last week we obviously spoke about the field side of Double Observer, but today it's really to understand how to analyze Double Observer data. So we'll do a little bit of R code and things like that. For today, I will sort of do it, but then I will share the code with you guys so you can sort of fiddle around with it in your own time, because I feel like all of us using R together might be a bit of a mess. And then we'll take a step forward and also talk a little bit about studying ungulates for whom Double Observer might not work. There was a request last time to maybe think about studying species like musk deer, which are more cryptic and sort of potentially in more forested areas where visibility is low. So we'll talk very briefly about it. And lastly, today we'll also talk a little bit about understanding 8 sex classes of ungulates. And again, I want to say, by no means am I an expert in any of these things. It's just things that, I'm interested in and know. So if at any point of time, people have thoughts and ideas or, suggestions, because there's people who've done this, for instance, maybe even more than some of us speaking about it today, feel free to chat, type in the chat box or even speak up. So it'll be great to sort of call on everything. So yeah, let's start off with our first aim then. So just taking a step back, just to recollect from last class, when we're doing Double Observer surveys, what kind of data do we collect? As we know, we collect data on the number of groups and their sizes, as we saw last time. Obviously, what species we observe, the location of the observations, the 8 sex category of the observations, and other notes such as, if there's certain typical behaviors that they're doing, the area name that you've seen them in, or some unusual features like, broken horns or whatever. And what you see up here in red is what the data that we will use to actually, that gets analyzed to, sort of get to abundances and eventually densities of these ungulates. So just to repeat what I just said, what is the raw data that gets analyzed? It's these 3 sort of things that we collect in the field that will subsequently get analyzed. So that is how many number of groups that we see, what were the group sizes of those groups, and if they were marked or recaptured, as we spoke last time, the fact that if both observers see them, then it's a 1-1, quote-unquote 1-1 as a mark and a recapture, or if only one observer or the other sees them. So that's the data that gets analyzed to then get to abundances and eventually densities. This is just to sort of show what it looks like, let's say on a spreadsheet or a data input sheet, let's say in Excel. As we spoke last time, we have a study area. For instance, here, the study area is called Himya. This is one of my field sites in northern India, in Ladakh. As we spoke last time, if you guys will recall, that study area is divided into various study blocks that we survey, or survey blocks rather. For instance, just as an example here, we had 4 survey blocks, Khatpu, Tarshi, Pu, and Arge. So there's 4 study blocks. They surveyed over, in this case, 3 days in the month of March in 2019, for instance. And it's the group size that the observers see, and their captures or not captures, captures being 1, not captures being 0, and with species. So from this data set, as you can see, there was 11 groups in total that were observed, of which 7 groups were recaptures. So this first group, this group, this group here, this group here, this group here, and the last 2 are recaptures, whereas observer 1 sees 3 groups that observer 2 misses, as you can see from these 2 zeros, whereas observer 2 sees 1 group that observer 1 misses, as you can see from this 0. So we'll come back to this later, but I just wanted to sort of use this opportunity to show, this is okay, what the data looks like, and this sort of, these 3 columns is what we will analyze. So there's a comment, I think. Let's see. Great. So just moving on, and we'll, just for a second, we'll come back to this eventually, this data set. So don't worry too much about it. This is just for description purposes. So now, having collected our data, how can we actually analyze the double observer data? Now, what I want to say from the right off is there's various different ways that one can analyze double observer data using sort of the whole concept of capture, recapture, right? And as we spoke last time, it was Fawcett and Hickling back in 1997 who were sort of the first people who adapted this method that was used many times on species such as birds, I think also amphibians and reptiles, if I'm not mistaken, in the 1970s and 80s, to mountain ungulates. Specifically, they did it on Himalayan thar in the New Zealand Alps. And I'll just sort of show you how they went about analyzing their data. So I apologize, it's going to be a bit theoretical for the next few slides, but hopefully what this will do is sort of give you a sense of how the analysis is done, and one can then do it in their own time. So essentially, what Fawcett and Hickling write, and this is not only them saying this, but a pretty sort of obvious thing is, n hat, or in other words, population estimate, the one that you want for a population, equals to g hat times mu hat, which in other words is basically the number of groups in that population multiplied by the mean group size. So it's nothing out of the blue here, right? Like it makes sense, just pure arithmetically. But now the issue here is obviously if it was just a total count method, all we would do is we would just count the number of groups and multiply that by the mean group size. But here the whole idea is it's a mark recapture based framework, and we're not detecting everything. So how do we actually do this? So for the mu, what they recommend is you just take the mean of the group sizes that you see. But for the g hat, we really need to estimate the actual number of groups, because we don't actually know how many there are. We're using capture recapture to sort of in a way arrive at that number of g hat. So let me just walk you through this. This is obviously there's a lot of number sort of variables here, but to arrive at g or g hat up here, it's basically a function of b, s1, and s2. And as you can see down here, s1 is the number of groups cited only by observer 1. Cited by observer 1, not only by observer 1. S2 is the number of groups cited by observer 2, whereas b is the number of groups cited by both observers. So as you can see from the previous example, for instance, b would be 7. S1 would be the number of groups cited by observer 1. You would calculate and put that in here, and similarly for S2. And when you sort of see that, it becomes quite a straightforward calculation really. One can do it in Excel or just on even a calculator. So it's a very simple way of analyzing double observer data to arrive at a population estimate here. All you're using is the mean group size, the total number of groups captured by both, and single captures by observer 1 and observer 2. And then if you want to get the variation in the population, again, this is going to be a bit more theoretical, but it's actually easier than it looks. So if you want to get the variation in the population, it's basically a function of this sort of large function, if I can put it that way. And I want to go into the theory of this because that's going to be quite complicated, but I don't want you guys to feel overwhelmed by this. Basically, variation in the population is going to be a function of the group size, the variation in the mean group size, and similar other factors. But basically, what you're using is already the data you have, and to arrive at variation in group size, as you can see as the input here, there is this function where you're again using the number of groups seen by both observers, number of groups seen only by one observer, and 2 observers. So again, this is just to say that using Fawcett and Hickling's method from 1997, you can arrive at a population estimate and a variation in the population estimate using pretty simple arithmetic calculations. And if you want the confidence level in the same, it's basically going to be plus or minus the z-test of half alpha of the standard error of that population estimate. But so that's one way of doing it.